Help me, my brother, can you lend me a hand as I walk through this land of confusion? If we give to each other, then there's nothing to say. Let's live right for the moment before it slips away.
Hey, hey, welcome to The Last Life Ever.
Hi. I'm going to tell you, Jeffy Jeff, if my internet goes out, I'm going to lose my mind because my internet's been great all day and it just started getting glitchy during that intro music.
Yeah,
I'm Jillian Sidoti.
Yeah, I heard it. I heard it was a little glitchy, actually, so I don't know if that was on our end or not, actually. So who knows? I guess we'll find out. That's right. If your internet goes out, just make sure you freeze like this, and then people will just think that you're just doing the "I'm just saying" thing the whole time. So, hey, we have tons of people watching live on Facebook and on wherever else we're broadcasting. I think like our YouTube channel, maybe even my own personal YouTube channel. I'm not sure why that is, but hey, if you're watching on my YouTube channel, welcome. We appreciate you. So anyway.
Watching. Why are you signaling out the people who are on your YouTube, on your Facebook?
Oh, no, my YouTube channel, because I don't think I have any followers on there. And if I have any, I want to appreciate them. I only have like 16 subscribers, so I don't really feel like most of those people are actually watching, especially since like 9 of them are me.
It's probably your mom. Speaking of which.
I have no idea actually if she's watching on my YouTube channel. She may not even be subscribed to my YouTube channel. But whatever, right? So anyway, listen, we didn't come here to talk about my YouTube channel. We came here to talk about you, Jillian Sidoti. Tell us how your week's going.
It's going great. I mean, it's Monday, so it's going great. It's good so far. I'm working on my diet bet. I'm working on trying to get into, I know we've had 7 weeks of trying to get into a new normal, but I'm still working at it. But things are going well. Super excited. We got the book out yesterday, Coronavirus Collective on Amazon, and just had a great Mother's Day yesterday with my kids and my husband. My husband made food all day long. Like all he did was make food. I don't know how I'm going to win this diet bet if he just keeps making food.
Well, you have till the end of the month. So just starve yourself the last 2 weeks of the month and you should be fine.
Yeah, that's all. No problem. No problem. Right. So.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. I mean, listen, I'm my diet bet's going all right. I got like 11,000 steps in already today. So the step bet's going really well too. Yeah. Power day at the beginning of the week. So what was that?
What's your minimum?
My minimum is like 7,400, I think. Somewhere around there. Yeah. So I've got the power day was like 9,600.
Oh, so you're like last to pass that now.
Oh yeah. I actually hit the power day at 1 p.m.
Wow. Where were you walking?
I was pacing back and forth in my hallway.
Oh.
I was talking on the phone and I decided that, and this is a new pro tip for people who need to get more steps, that if you talk on the phone while walking back and forth in your hallway, you get more steps.
Listen, everybody out there that's watching right now, and even our regular watchers, I want to tell you, we've talked on the Facebook group about doing some exercise classes, and some of you leading those exercise classes, some of you who know what you're doing when it comes to exercise classes, and we haven't scheduled any of those. So we really need you to take initiative and let us know when you're available to teach a streamed class on the Facebook group. We would be just so honored that you would do that. And maybe we'll stop dealing with like things like television brackets and actually do something good for ourselves.
Well, I mean, the television bracket thing's been really fun. I mean, I am still disappointed about MacGyver, but what can you do?
No, listen, that was a travesty of justice with MacGyver beating The Office. I mean, like, look, I thought that was shocking, and I thought that at one point, I can't remember what it was, but like the A-Team was beating Breaking Bad or something like that. Or I might have this backwards. Was MacGyver beating Breaking Bad? I can't remember.
I think so, actually. I think MacGyver was beating Breaking Bad.
Okay. So MacGyver was beating Breaking Bad, and then the A-Team was beating The Office. And now we have a situation where Little House on the Prairie is beating The Wire, which, by the way, The Wire is probably the best show of all time. And it's just underrated because it was like a cable show before, like, I don't know. Anyhow, like, I have a special treat, Jeff.
Okay, wait, one second though. On the A-Team beating the or what is it? The Wire getting beat by Little House on the Prairie. That makes sense to me because The Wire's unwatchable.
Oh my God!
I just wanted to share that piece of information. I watched exactly one half of one episode one time.
You got what you deserve. You didn't give it time. You didn't let the characters develop. And
I also didn't let the characters develop in Little House on the Prairie, but I can tell objectively it's better.
You're a horrible human being. And that's all I'm going to say about that. But I have a special gift for somebody.
I was just doing it for you, that I'm just saying, because you called me a horrible human being. You should have been like, that's better. Thank you. That's how you get away with doing things like that, as you know. All right, what's the special gift for me? I want to hear. What do we got going on?
Yeah, I'm going to send it to you. And then your job is to send it to somebody else in need.
Okay. All right, I'm up for this. What is it?
It's a box set of Wire.
That's terrible.
And you're gonna watch The Wire, the full all 5 seasons.
I'm not watching it.
And then you're gonna give a report to everyone.
Yeah, it's not happening.
Yes, you are. I'm sending it to you. And you're gonna watch The Wire, and you're gonna learn that this was the best show of all time.
Are you also sending me? Are you gonna also send me a DVD player? I'm just wondering because it's not going to get much use without a DVD player.
You don't have a DVD player?
When is the last time you used your DVD player?
Well, I don't know. We still get Netflix DVDs in the mail.
Okay. I'm just saying I don't have a DVD player. I probably do. I just don't even know if I have a DVD player.
Look, this is going to be like, what was that movie? It was a movie, but it was first a book, and it was America Forever.
That's most movies, yeah.
The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants.
Oh man, I have a real problem with what just happened here.
What? This
is from my wife, and it's even worse than that because not only did she say The Wire is brilliant, she also says we have a DVD player. And I'll make sure he watches it. So now I'm stuck watching Drivel for the next 300 hours or whatever The Wire is.
Oh, it's so good. All right. So this will be going to Jeff. And this is going to be like the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. It's going to be the last liferhood of the Traveling Wire.
I feel like there might be a better thing to call that. Like, I don't know, like the Last Life Wire or something. I don't know, but there's got to be something better than this Traveling Wire, whatever you have. It's like a telephone wire. You know that old game where you talked into a can? That's what it is. We're just going to call it Kick the Can.
All right.
Because that's how stupid that is. Anyway, now that we've cleared that up.
I don't like how you're insulting me this entire podcast.
Okay, well, you know what? It's fine. It's your podcast anyway. Do what you want with it.
Okay. So you're going to watch The Wire. We're all going to get on top of our diet bet. I'm going to stop eating like a little piggy pie.
I had grilled chicken breast today twice, and I had a handful of cashews and some salad. So I think I did pretty good today, actually.
You did pretty good. Good.
I mean, it's not quite as vegan as you are, but
I'm not vegan.
Well, I said I'm not as vegan as you are. I didn't say you were completely vegan. I'm just saying I wasn't as vegan as you are.
I get to weigh in for my diet bet because, like, I guess you get prizes if the more you weigh in, and I don't even know where Derek hid the scale on me because I left it in the middle of the hallway. And
No, I left mine in the middle of the kitchen, and now my dogs like to stand on it so I can see how much they weigh. I don't know why they do that, but it's kind of entertaining. But look, so quick side note. I mean, I know you don't like me to look at comments as they come up, but I feel like this one is relevant right now. So Jennifer thinks it's going really well. The diet bet's going well.
Who's it going well for, though? Is it going well?
I'm assuming she's saying it's going well for her. She's the one that started the diet bet, after all.
Yeah, right. Out there, and who's anybody watching this right now, if you're watching it, or if you're listening to this, let us know what your tips and tricks have been to stay healthy during this quarantine, or just stay healthy in general. If you have any recipes, please share them in the Facebook group. That would be very much appreciated, so we can all come up with new ideas of stuff to eat that's healthy.
It sounds good. Okay, so let's move on. So today we have a very special guest, one of my favorite people in the entire world, and that's not even an exaggeration. I've known this person since he was born. Literally, I remember the day he was born. I was very young then. But anyway, it's my brother. So that's my entire intro for him. But before we get to my brother, who is a fascinating person, and I'll let Jillian tell you all about him because she knows him better than I do. Before we get to that, we have to tell our terrible joke of the week. Go ahead, Jillian. What is your terrible joke of the week?
So the bartender says, "We don't serve your type in here." A time traveler walks into a bar.
That is a very terrible, terrible joke for sure. Okay, so
hold on a second though. But do you get why I told that joke? Because the whole subject of this podcast is living in the now.
I do get that. So it was very on topic. Good job, living in the now. So I am going to tell a joke that my brother first told me, and that way I will be even more on topic than you. All right, so that's what I'm going to go with. And Jennifer says your joke's bad. So anyway, so the thing is, all right. So this you know how like I've been telling these really stupid jokes. It's like you know what's blue and smells like red paint. Like really simple ones like that. So I'm trying to stick with that format. So here it is. What's brown and sticky?
Oh, I don't. Okay, what?
A stick.
I'm going to give this one to you. I'm going to give it. You win.
Well, you know who really should win? This guy right here. Because
people who really lost, though, if we're going to be like honest about things, is the audience.
Well, we're going to blame you because your joke was it was out of order.
Okay, you know what? I'm not even.
Come on, that was like almost funny what I said there. So anyway, Robert is my brother, and we wanted to bring him on because a couple of things. One, he's the only person we know that's been to the hospital twice since the coronavirus started without getting coronavirus. So good job on that. It's pretty impressive. And then the other thing is like he's just got a great attitude and he fits perfectly with the Last Life Ever brand. So without ado, Bob, take it over. It's your show.
Oh, great. So are you sure that's my joke?
I don't know. I thought so. Is it not your joke?
Well, no, I remember the joke. I don't remember its origin, and I still find it funny.
Yeah, it's a good joke.
This traveling down memory lane is awesome. Let's talk to Bob. Bob, I got questions. I know Jeff knows all the answers because he's known you longer and like since you were born and whatever.
We live like 800 miles apart. So you just like you probably know all the recent stuff the same since we just met.
Well, the thing I'm really interested in is the first story I heard about you, which was that you went on the trip to Mount Kilimanjaro with Jeff to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. And whose idea was it to climb?
Oh, that was Jeff's idea. He was telling me that it was a personal goal of his, and he was going to make it happen. And I'm listening politely, and then he got done talking. I said, "Well, I'm coming with, right?" And he's like, "Well, of course." So
Pretty much how I remember it.
myself.
So you just invited yourself. Okay, so that's great. So did you prepare to climb the mountain at all?
I did stairs at work. So I made a spreadsheet and I measured the stair to see how far I was climbing, and I climbed something greater than Mount Everest at work on my lunch break.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's so cool. Okay, so you did this, but then you had this thing would happen. You get up the mountain. And where were you on the mountain when you determined you were getting sick?
It was probably the second to last day. I started developing a cold, and I got a cough, and I got really worried about it because I knew that was a symptom of a more serious condition. Fortunately, one of the other groups had a medic with them who agreed to examine me, and he assured me that I had nothing wrong with me, and it was just some type of sinus infection.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I felt terrible, but it gave me like this, it relieved me enough, just feeling like, oh, the doctor says I'm fine, right? So I got this like burst of energy, and I felt great for like the next like 18 hours. So, we had dinner, went to bed, got up and started hiking again, but it hit me like a brick wall the next day.
And what was it? The cough again, or just something else?
Well, no, it was sucking all my energy. I wasn't getting enough oxygen. So I'm breathing, but I'm just not getting enough oxygen, and I'm just slowing down. And it's just so much work. I end up taking a break like every 2 or 3 minutes. Jeff, I was, ahead of you the first handful of days, right? Like, sure. And, it just toward the end, I don't know, would you get to the camp that last day? Probably an hour.
Yeah, so kind of went like the first couple of days, I was definitely the slowest person on the trail, which I was the slowest person on the trail when I ended too, but that's because he was off the mountain at that point. But I went pretty much consistent pace the whole time. Robert, he was ahead of me, and then he was walking the same speed as me, and then he was walking slower than me. But the main thing that freaked me out was that when he was breathing, it sounded like gurgling almost. Yeah. Like he'd be like, and then he'd be like this, and it was really weird. Yeah, it didn't sound right.
So where were you when that happened?
Well, I mean, near the top of a mountain, I guess would be the answer to that. I don't know how to answer that question. It was probably 3 or 4 days of pretty normal health, and then it was the 5th day, I think, that was getting really bad. That's the day I saw the medic at night. And then it was the 6th day that Jeff's really referring to, where I ended up at camp a solid hour at least behind everybody.
Yeah, no, I was like an hour behind everyone. You were like 3 hours behind everyone.
Yeah, I mean,
that was a short walk too.
It was a short day. It took me all day.
Yeah, so as you climb up further on the mountain, you walk shorter and shorter distances because you have to acclimate to acclimatize to that elevation, and so the base camp that we stayed at is around 16,000 feet, a little bit less than 16,000 feet. The day before that, which was when he was starting to feel sick, was maybe like 15,000 feet. I mean, it wasn't that big of an elevation gain that day. And it was maybe a 4-hour walk for most people, something like that. But we were, 27 kilometers from the park gate at that point, right? And there's no, you have to walk out. There's no option to leave. So that's where we were. And we got to base camp, and they did they put the little things on your finger to check your oxygen and stuff like that. And, everyone was in the mid 80s, and, normally at sea level, you might be 97, 98, 99, on the oxygen scale. We were all 85. I was 86 or 7. Some people were 82. But Robert was a little bit lower than that, but not crazy lower than that.
Well, no, it was in the 60s when I checked that when I got up there. It was 65 or something.
Oh, really? That low, huh?
Well, you're talking about the last day I was up there.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So then the lead guide says, well, maybe if you rest it off and, try to get a nap in before we attempt our summit, it'll rise a bit. So why don't you go in the tent and try to sleep for a couple hours? And I spent that couple hours keeping Jeff awake with my rattling coughs when he's been getting some sleep. And when Boniface came in, that was our lead guide's name, came in to measure my oxygen, it was down to the mid-50s.
Right. So,
oh my God, how are you still alive? That's
they'll hospitalize in the 70s. So, like in normal conditions.
Yeah. So it's really bad. And the thing is, like, you got to understand about this. Like, you get into camp around noon if you do it at the right speed that last day, and then you sleep from like noon to like 10 or 11 p.m. and you climb in the middle of the night. Because I was two reasons. One, the ground is frozen at night and it's easier to climb the mountain. But also, like, people really like to watch the sunrise from the top of the mountain.
Okay.
It's also less, what's that?
Timing too. I mean, to get to a reasonable level after the summit back down, you just don't have that much time in the day.
Yeah, you go up. It takes like 8 or 9 hours to climb from base camp to the summit, and then it's only about an hour or so down. But then you're 10 hours into your climbing, 11 hours into your climbing. You take a quick rest, and then you have to get way further down because the altitude difference between 16,000 where a camp is and like 19,300 is enough that pretty much everyone gets altitude sickness. It's just a function of how much altitude sickness you get. And so you want to go down really fast. So you go up all night and then you have that whole day to climb down. And you climb down to like 12,000 feet, which is like a very, very long day.
Okay.
And so
day, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so what happened is, we go to bed at like 2 or 3 in the afternoon because 3 o'clock, let's say, because he was a little bit later in getting into camp. We had lunch, go to sleep. And then about 6 o'clock, I think, is when they woke him up to check on him.
Yeah.
So
my oxygen had dropped down to the mid-50s at this point, and they said, well, you got to get ready to go. You can't climb this mountain tonight. So that, that's fine. I could tell how sick I was. And I got to the lunch tent with all my things, and I look down, and I am wearing my boots on the wrong feet. So I go to change them, and then I realized they're Jeff's boots. So I didn't get my boots, nor did I get them on the right feet. So
it's true. I'm glad you figured that out before you left because I needed those to climb the rest of the way to the.
What's the difference in your foot size?
Well, he wears a wide. Actually, he might have done okay. I think we had the same size boot, only his was wide and mine was narrow.
Yeah, and they were the same boots. In fairness, identical boots. Anyway, it might have been fine. So real quick though, I want to point this out for Robert's sake. Randy said there's no choppers up there. That's accurate, right? There's no helicopters.
Yeah. So what happened is I actually bought insurance that in case I got really sick on the mountain or hurt, that they would helicopter me down. And it turned out they sold me that insurance despite the fact that the chapter had been discontinued 3 months earlier.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you're like, oh my gosh, there's no one coming to get me and I got to get down this mountain.
Yeah, so I get all ready, I get all my stuff on, and I'm going to hike out. And what happened is when we hiked in, came up kind of over a little hill and then came down, and we camped down maybe 50 steps down from where we had been climbing. So just a little ways down. And so I go to hike out, and I've got my poles, and I had to rest 3 or 4 times just to get up that 50 steps to get out of camp. And I mean, it's a 20, what'd you say, about 27 kilometers to where the nearest road is.
Yeah, I think it's like 24 to the road and then 3 kilometers out. Okay. So you probably had to walk 24 kilometers. But 24 kilometers with your oxygen basically in the 50s. And starting at 7 p.m.-ish at night.
Yeah, it was dark already. It gets dark at 6:30, because they're on the equator, so every day is 66 essentially. And so it was already dark. I got my headlamp on and I start going, and I wasn't with it. So I didn't really understand exactly what we were attempting to do. And they kept kind of lying to me. They're like, well, you really only have to make it to where we're at a low enough altitude where you could get better. So you've got, 7 kilometers to this camp or whatever. So then we'd hike for hours, and 7 kilometers going down this hill like this with boulders and whatnot. You're averaging 1 kilometer an hour at best, maybe 2.
Yeah, I mean, if you didn't have altitude sickness, you might make 2. But I mean, honestly, like I don't think I did much faster than that, and I didn't have altitude sickness, right? It's very uneven, and it's not straight down. You go down, and then you go up, and you go down, and you go up, and because it's a mountain, right? I mean, and they say things like, "Oh, the trail's not too bad up forward a little bit," but it always is. It's terrible the whole time.
So it turns out what I had was a pretty rare version of altitude sickness. I had a pulmonary edema that was developing in my lungs.
Hold on, though. Stop for a second. You get to the bottom of the mountain. What happens next?
Well, so that's it's 10 o'clock in the morning now. By the time 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning,
So it took you 12 hours to walk down while you're tremendously ill.
Yeah, and I took some breaks and stuff, but it was actually like 14 or 15 hours, and then it was terrible. I get down and
who was with you? One of the
yeah, they sent one of the guides with me, Edward. I've been in communication with. He's a great guy, and wouldn't have made it down without him, and the two porters that they sent with me as well. I mean, I fell once or twice, and they picked me up and brushed me off, and they were carrying my things. I couldn't have carried anything at this point.
Yeah. Okay, so you get to the bottom of the mountain, and then what happens?
Okay. So an ambulance comes and picks me up. It's technically 3 miles from the end of the trail yet. And I'm like, oh, this is great. They put me in the front seat, which I thought was really weird. And we're driving by, and the ambulance stops like every couple hundred yards to pick up other hikers who are just walking out. It's like a taxi service, essentially.
Yeah, it's like a Land Rover with a Red Cross symbol on the side. It's not really an ambulance. In fairness, like you get to the bottom, and this is the first road, and it's like 3 kilometers, like you said, or a little bit more than 3 kilometers to the gate, and they just kind of stop and pick whoever up until it's full. They pick up people that are in emergencies first, and then whatever else, they just pick up people, right?
Go.
Well, I was going to say, so like, you got to understand though, like when this is happening, I'm starting to summit, right? Because like, I sleep until 9 o'clock at night. He left at 7. And by the way, I didn't get to sleep till like 7. So I slept like 2 hours, and I'm going to start to summit, and we're in radio contact with his guide for the first like 7 or 8 hours. But then after that, we're going in opposite directions. So we're getting further and further apart. And I'm hearing these reports like, well, your brother just made it to such and such camp, and they're going to evaluate him, right? And he should be able to sleep there, and then they'll take him off the mountain the next day. But then they're like, well, he's not getting better. We're going to make him go to the next camp. And it was just like that the whole time. It was like always one more camp. And then I guess he's getting reports of my progress at the same time because of this radio contact. We didn't ever talk to each other because they were relaying. Like my radio guy would talk to the guy at base camp, who would talk to the guy, the guy that was with Robert.
Okay, so you get to the bottom, you get in the Land Rover, they pick you up, you start driving around. Where do they bring you next?
Well, they stop at the gate and say, well, you have to sign out. That's required by law. And it's like a hill with like 30 stairs into like this new fancy building they just built. And I could barely walk. I don't know how I made it the whole night. I'm like holding onto my sticks, trying to go upstairs. Like,
and
10 minutes.
Those stairs, by the way, were really hard for me, and I didn't have mountain sickness. Now, granted, I had, issues with my feet and stuff at that point, but there were big steps. They weren't like your normal, like 12-inch steps. These were like 18-inch steps of marble, and they were like a little bit uneven, even though it was new. And it was like the building was still being constructed. So there was like a gravel sidewalk going up to it, and it was like really uneven, and like it was actually kind of challenging not having mountain sickness climbing up this hill.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you go in, you sign something.
Yeah, I have to sign that says I got off the mountain. They made us sign it every night at every camp. You'd have to sign what group you were with, little personal information, that kind of thing. So
okay, so you sign back in the Land Rover, or where do you go now?
Yeah, back into the ambulance, and they drove me straight to the hospital from there. So that was probably about a 20-minute drive, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds about right. I mean, I didn't drive directly from there to the hospital, so I don't know exactly. Okay. But the town at the foot of the mountain is called Moshi, and inside Moshi, there's this little hospital. And it was a pretty interesting hospital, right? I mean,
tell us All right, so you're in the hospital and they're like, okay, you have altitude sickness. Oh, there you are in the hospital. And it doesn't look like it's the most advanced.
Right. So this picture, what's interesting is like, you'll note there's like wire instead of windows behind him. That's not screen, by the way. That's actually wire instead of windows.
Okay.
And so there he is in the hospital now. But you had a private room, right?
Yeah, I mean, they called it a private room. I think there were 4. You were in there. There were 4 or 5 patients. And I only had that the last like 16 hours. My first room had about 20 people in it.
Oh my gosh.
And then I got moved into the intensive care unit, where there were probably about 15 or 20 people as well in the room.
In one room.
Yeah. And,
oh my gosh. Okay. So how was the care? What was it like? Did you feel relief?
The doctors and nurses were absolutely wonderful. They were fantastic and caring and treated me great. You know, we can talk about the conditions of the hospital, and obviously their resources aren't, what they are here. But I was probably in the best hospital in the world for the sickness I had. Because we're at the base of the tallest mountain in Africa, and also by far the most climbed of the 7 summits. 50,000 people a year attempt this mountain, and pretty much everybody, like Jeff was saying, at 19,000 feet, everybody's going to get some form of altitude sickness. So this is where this disease happens.
Yeah, and in fact,
people a year do Everest.
In your room, there was another guy with altitude sickness, right?
There was another Robert with altitude sickness.
It's true, and he made it to the last day and like passed out on the mountain, actually. So he actually might have been, even though your condition might have been actually worse, his might have been worse in a lot of ways because he had to come down on a little cart.
Yes, they carried him down on what they called a stretcher, but it was like a wheelbarrow with a flat spot. And he told me they spilled him no less than 7 or 8 times out of that.
Oh my gosh. Could you imagine? Okay, so you survive altitude sickness. It sounds like you had a pretty good, I don't know. I would have been scared out of my mind to be in a room with 15 people while I'm vulnerable and sick. So that's amazing. The fact that you even walked, I would have just been, I'm dead. Sorry, I won't be able to make it down. So I think that's really amazing. But now let's fast forward. You get out of that situation, and
we have a quick viewer question I'd like to pose. So Randy, who is one of the guys who climbed Kilimanjaro with us, he wants to know if you still keep in touch with Edward. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I've emailed back and forth with Edward 2 or 3 times since, and I plan on trying to keep a casual relationship. He actually reached out to me first, so.
Great.
Wondering how I was doing, and he was a godsend. He told me that they were hired to help us complete our journey wherever it ended. And he brought me, I was in the hospital for 2 days. He brought me 6 meals while I was in that hospital.
Yeah, because they don't provide food or water in the hospital, right?
No, they don't. That's true.
So the locals have to bring you food and water. And of course, the only people that Robert knew were us, and we were on top of a mountain, and his wife, and my wife, which they were like 4 hours away by car and couldn't get to him. So Edward just stayed there and just kept coming back and forth and bringing him food and water.
We rented a room in Moshi that had no electricity or plumbing. And he didn't have a change of clothes. He was in the same clothes that he hiked down that mountain with me in the 2 days I was in the hospital. And then when I got out of the hospital, he rented a car and with a driver and followed me all the way back to the hotel.
Wow. So
yeah,
this guy took really amazing care of you, because who would ever think that a hospital doesn't have food? I mean, what do people do who end up in the hospital that don't have anybody to bring them food?
Yeah, I don't know. I do not know.
Right. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And you got to understand about this hospital. It's like open air concrete, right? I mean, there's this time when you got to tell the story about about when the doctor came in and thought you were scared of the doctor.
Oh, yeah. I'm staring at this praying mantis on the ceiling that's been crawling around all the time. And right as the doctor walked out, it flew right at me. And the doctor walked out but I mean, there were bugs everywhere. It was open air, like Jeff said. I mean, it was a building, but there weren't windows. It was mostly just those grates that you saw in the picture. I think a good example is I was filthy. I'd come off the mountain, I hadn't showered in a week and a half, and after about a day in the hospital, they said, well, I think you're well enough that we can take you off the oxygen and wheel you over to have a shower. So, oh, this is amazing, right? And they wheel me into someone else's private room, so 4 people, and they wheel me in, and there was a shower there, but the plumbing had stopped working probably years ago, and there was a bucket with hot water and a cut in half milk jug that I could scoop in and pour over my head in the shower. And that was the shower in the nicer room that they had to take me to in order to have a shower.
Yeah, so we got to start complaining.
Yeah, right. And this is actually the thing, right? And this is the main reason why I wanted to have you on. It's not because, I mean, it's interesting to talk about being hospitalized in a developing world country. But the main thing that's interesting is that when you were there, you were just kind of like, yeah, I mean, like we planned for more than a year to climb Kilimanjaro, right? Yeah. We get to the base camp of Kilimanjaro, and you said to me something to the effect of like, it's all right. I've enjoyed 6 days of climbing, and I've got another day to climb down. So I got 7/8 of the joy out of climbing this mountain. And I know I would not have felt that way. Right?
That's an amazing statement. Wow. No, I don't think most of us would have. We would have wallowed in self-pity. How do you like, and we have 2 other big things in your life that you've gone through. One is give us the Cliff Notes version, if you would, because I want to mention the third thing. Give us the Cliff Notes version of you having a medical emergency in the midst of coronavirus.
Yeah, that one's not as big of a deal. I had appendicitis, so and they don't let anybody else in the hospitals now. So my wife had to drop me off at the door and kind of wave goodbye and wish me luck. And but the hospital's mostly empty. People are avoiding non-emergency stuff, so they took good care of me too. It was harder on my wife than it was me. It was the second time that I had been in a hospital in 2 months where she couldn't visit me. That's just not. It's not the way it works normally, right? So.
But they got you. And that one of the things was that, if I recall correctly, they got you in and out of there really fast because they didn't want you to contract coronavirus, right? So you didn't have the time to like convalesce or heal or what have you in the hospital. They were like, we ripped it out. You got to go now.
I think I was out of surgery 4 or 5 hours when I left. So I don't know what the standard is. I imagine it's longer. I didn't get a bill.
Yeah, I would think so too.
I wonder if it's cheaper if you don't stay as long at the hospital.
Well, Maybe I'll have to compare when I get all the bills in. They're trickling in slowly.
Yeah.
Another thing about the difference between our hospital systems is I paid $665 for all the service in Tanzania.
In cash.
Yeah.
Because they literally would say to him things like, oh, you need to have an EKG, but you need to tell us how you're going to pay for it first, right? Like you had to go get cash to pay them on the spot.
Yeah, I put like 200,000 shillings down, and then I ended up spending and I paid him one other time in there, so maybe I had about $500,000 in, and I think I spent like 1.2 million shillings, but it came out to less than $700. And I had to go ATM shopping like before they would release me from the hospital and give me the drugs I needed to leave the hospital. And then, Jeff, you'll know this, they only have 10,000 shilling notes. That's all they have. But if you have to pay like 1 million shillings, that's a stack of money. Like this.
It's an enormous stack of money.
Pound with like more money than these people have in their life.
It is really ridiculous. Like you go to the ATM and you think, well, I need like 300,000 shillings because that's like, $150 or something, right? It's just not that much money. I mean, it's a lot, but to them, it's a ton of money. But if you're traveling and you're gonna, get on planes and whatever, you go to the ATM and you get 300,000, and it's a pretty big stack. So just 4 or 5 times that amount, right? This is a giant stack of 10,000 shilling notes. So
no, I mean, it just like I'm just thinking about how fortunate we are in this country. Like, there is a level of asking you how you're going to pay for it for sure. And medical expenses are way too out of control in this country. I think we can all agree with that. But, like, how does anybody get care there if they're like, it's stacks of money? And we're just so fortunate, right? In a lot of ways, even in the midst of coronavirus, you were able to safely get your appendix removed. And there you are. Is that you getting your appendix removed there?
That's before. Yeah, that's right. That's before. I sent this picture to my wife after they got me all checked in and whatnot to let her know I was checked in.
Okay, I want to talk about something a little more exciting but also in a lot of ways more stressful. You adopted children, and tell us about that. Like you adopted children. Did you adopt children through the foster care system?
Well, one of them. My first son was in the foster system. He was 10 when he came home. Yeah, and the second one we were going to adopt from the foster system again, and his story came to light to us, and we just really felt like it would be the right home for him. So he wasn't actually in the foster system, but we were all set and ready, and that actually made the process of adoption quite a bit easier because there's a lot of overlap and making sure the family's safe and all that sort of thing.
What made you decide to adopt children out of the foster system, and how did this process start? Because that's an older child too. That's not a baby. 10 years old is relatively, and is considered an older child. So that's really cool first and foremost. But how did you decide to do this?
I guess it was always the plan. So this was with my first wife, and we talked about it before we got married, and said, well, if we do have kids, that's the route we want to go. It was never a discussion beyond that. It was just that, well, when we feel like we're ready, it seems like there's a lot of kids out there without homes. So that was always the plan. And then, one day we started feeling ready, and, you look into the classes and it all just kind of moves from there. It's an amazing way to have a family. I don't have a family in the traditional way, so I have no way of comparing it, but we've had a wonderful experience, and, Brady's a tough kid. I doubt he's watching this. If he is, I'm sorry, but he was a tough one to raise, and still tough to this day. He's 21 years old, but it's been a joy, and it's my family, and I love the boys dearly. So
yeah, and then oh, go ahead. I was just gonna say, so Sawyer, you adopted him. How old was he when you adopted or brought him into your house?
He was 6. Although he was so underdeveloped, he looked like he was 3. You'll remember. Jeff.
Oh yeah, of course.
He was a little tight. I think he weighed 29 pounds when he came home at 6 years old. Yeah. So
what I wanted to know is, because I know, I myself included, I know there's a lot of people who watch this show and listen to the podcast, and they've always thought about adopting or doing the foster care system and doing that thing. And we've had other guests on before who've talked about taking in wayward children of sorts. So with that being said, what tips would you offer anybody who's thinking about going this route of adopting a child?
Well, I think to be to go in knowledgeable and to know that it's really, really hard, and to set your expectations reasonably, because no child ends up for adoption and had a rosy life beforehand. Even babies. I mean, there's a lot of bonding that goes on in the womb. So even if a child's adopted at day 1, there's already trauma there. You're starting off at a really big deficit, and you just have to know that it's going to be a challenge. And a lot of families wash out, and there were times when we were really close to washing out because it's really, really, really hard. I'm sure parenting a bio kid's hard as well, but you start with, in the case of Brady, 10 lost years. He had 17 homes before I met him. Yeah.
Oh
17.
my gosh. Oh, wow. So okay, wow. So that is a big challenge. So no wonder you're like, I've raised 2 children that came out of very terrible situations. I can take this altitude sickness and coronavirus appendectomy. Sure, no problem. That's a walk in the park.
I think life is about experiences, and I wanted to get to the top of that mountain, Jillian, but the truth of the matter is I don't know anybody else who had the experience I did in that hospital, and I got to know some Tanzanian people in a way that you don't when you're traveling. Really hardworking men and women who were saving my life, and they're just really wonderful people, and it was just an interesting way to see, to really get to know the culture in a way that isn't the part that you buy when you go on a safari, right?
Let me write that down. Next time on trip, get sick, get to know locals.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's
good strategy.
If you could get this close to death, that's going to improve your trip. So.
Okay, that's how we make our events and travel more interesting. This is incredible.
I'm just gonna try to avoid hospitalization in foreign countries in general, but it might be a reason to slow down and try to meet some people, because when we were in Tanzania, and Robert knows this, so we went and we decided we're going to fly to Zanzibar to have a little rest and relaxation after going on safari and climbing a mountain and all this. And my wife and I lost our passports. So we found this out at the airport, by the way, that we didn't have our passports. And Bob and his wife, they got on the plane and we said, just go, get to Zanzibar. We've already paid for the hotel and all this stuff. So just go and we'll figure out how to get there. I mean, or we'll go across land to the embassy, which was 11 hours by car if we needed to replace our passports.
Wow.
And so we had this day in Arusha where we found our passports that evening. They were in the hotel room. We had left them there or something, it was our fault. But so we got our passports back and we had this day just to kill. And the safari guide that we had, John, he just kind of took us under his wing and drove us around and showed us his house. And we met his family and we went to dinner with them. And it's in that experience is the same kind of thing, right? It's getting to know someone on a much more personal level. They're not trying to sell you on how, on the next tour or package or whatever. They're not, they're not just they're real people. And I've kept in contact with John after that. And these people are struggling. I mean, I'm sure if you've talked to Edward, that as well.
He makes his living by people like us coming to his country.
And no one's doing it, right? And these guys make $20 a day when they have a job. So, months of no tourism is devastating to them, and it's we have it tough here, but I think it's worse for them. So
you don't have to get sick and end up in the hospital. I just think that the unexpected parts of a vacation often give you more memories and more perspective than the planned parts. I wouldn't give up the safari or the climb part either, or even just hang out in the hotel and having a cocktail. But, I'm going to remember the way in which I descended that mountain for the rest of my life. And it was a wonderful trip. I mean, there's a couple of really tough days right in the middle, but it was a wonderful trip.
Well, listen, I wouldn't trade it. I would much rather be in my position than yours. But I will say this, I'm super happy that you're able to embrace that, because I think I would hope that I would feel the same way, but I'm skeptical about it, right? So we have to wrap up here in a second, but do you have any parting words of wisdom about how you can accept whatever it is you're going through like that?
No, I think you do what it is you're faced with. I mean, people say, "Oh, I don't know if you said it." I don't know if I could have made it down in that scenario. I might have just given up. And I think you do what you have to do. You're stronger than you are until you're tested. And when I wanted to climb this mountain, one of the things I wanted to find out is how much could I do? I felt like this might be the greatest physical test I could have. And I didn't have that physical test going to the top like Jeff did. But I know exactly what I can do, everything I have to be alive. And that's an important lesson to have learned. And I think most people would get there too, because that need is very important.
Yeah. So
well, I agree with Sarah. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate it. Do you have a favorite book maybe you can recommend to everybody, and we'll all read it as a group? We'll all read it as a book club, a Last Life Ever book club.
My favorite book is Slaughterhouse-Five. I bet you a lot of people have read it though. So, you know, I mean, Vonnegut's not exactly an under the wire kind of writer. So, you know, but
Slaughterhouse. Is Slaughterhouse one word? Five.
Have you not read Slaughterhouse-Five, Jillian?
I think I did like when I was in middle school.
It's actually perfectly appropriate because it's essentially a story of non chronological you know, things. So it fits with your joke. So
yeah.
Oh my gosh. All right.
Person's unstuck from time and he's just bouncing around at different points in his life.
We've run out of time. We gotta go. But Robert, thank you so much. Hopefully everybody enjoyed this show. I'm Jillian Sodoti.
I'm Jeffrey Holst, and we really enjoyed having you. Thank you, and have a great day. See you next week.